time. Alright, so we're holding by the union of Bia Maimon Chazal, actually Nivra Ha'olam Ha'yahu Shmei Belvod. And we said that B'Klolos, the union of Hu Shmei Belvod was the union of Shem Havaya. That's how we touched at the beginning of the Omud. V'im Kein Harayei Shem Havaya Gam B'Eren Shesh L'Fnei HaTzimtzum. If we're going to say that there was a union from Ad Shaloi Nivra Ha'olam, then B'derech Klal and Siddur we touch Ad Shaloi Nivra Ha'olam, meaning Ad the Tzimtzum HaRishon, up until the Tzimtzum HaRishon. That's called Ad Shaloi Nivra Ha'olam, because the Ikar Pu'ula of Brias Ha'olam was the Tzimtzum. It's Ad Shaloi Nivra Ha'olam Shmoi. So we're touching the union from Shmoi B'Shem Havaya. Well, that means that in the Ein Sof, prior to the Tzimtzum, there's also the union of Shem Havaya. Rak, Shezo B'chinas Ispashtus Ha'olam. That's in the level Koydem HaTzimtzum of what we refer to as Ispashtus Ha'olam. We're going to draw the two madregas of Etzem Ha'olam and Ispashtus Ha'olam. Kiyodua. But the union of Etzem Ha'olam is the union of Gilui HaMoya Bilvad. העניין של גילוי על חופנים, כל עניין is גילוי המויה. Ispashtus Ha'olam is already the גילוי למען הזולus. It's already the beginning of the oil, which will be at least a mocker, shebamocker of the oil, which will become shaykh to say the Shtalshalas. And therefore the Tzimtzum occurs in that oil dafki, which is the union Ispashtus. The union Yadur, the Ein Sof, of Ner Tzimtzum, why do we say that the Koydem HaTzimtzum Klalusei is called Kolu B'Ha'atzmus? The Inyan HaTzimtzum, because what was the Ikar Pu'ulas HaTzimtzum? She'yeh is Galus Kaviyachol Chutz Le'atzmusei. Koydem HaTzimtzum Kolu B'Ha'atzmusei K'mo shkosu b'mokim acher. The union of the Tzimtzum was to cause Ki'ilu, that the Eibusha was megale to something outside himself. The Tzimtzum began the whole concept of there being another entity. Through the Tzimtzum, it became possible to make oilamas, and in those oilamas themselves, first of all, it was Ne'atzolim, and then afterwards even Nivroim. So the Tzimtzum caused the whole beginning of Kiyul the Eibusha being megale himself to something. But that's what we call Kaviyachol Chutz Le'atzmusei. Even though, why do we say Kaviyachol? Because there's nothing Chutz Le'atzmusei. But at least it appears that Inyan, and that was the Uftur the Tzimtzum. Prior to the Tzimtzum, everything is just Kolol Boiz Borach, like everything is really Kolol Boy even after the Tzimtzum. But prior to the Tzimtzum, that is literally, to put it in the vernacular, that's all you've got. You have only how everything is really Botel V'Nichlal Boy is Borach. Mikol Mochim, B'derech Prat, Yesh B'zeh Madreiges. Hu B'chinas Ispashtus Ha'olam, B'chinas Etzem Ha'olam. Hu B'chinas Ispashtus Ha'olam, we really learned this in the previous classes, I remember. Shezo Atzilus Teklolos, the Alter Rebbe writes in the famous Maimah at the end of Pasha Mas'ei, Ela Mas'ei B'nai Yisrael. Over there the Alter Rebbe is Mavaya, the madregas of what we call the four oilamas Aliyah B'Klolusah. We have Atzilus Teklolos, Odom, the Atzilus Teklolos, Odom, the Bria Teklolos, Odom, the Yetzirah Teklolos. Meaning, if we take the whole generality of the Gilui from the Atzmas ad the Sofa Atzilus v'Koilo Oilamas Piyah, then we can talk about how those four Oilamas are from Kloli. So he says that the Ispashtus Ha'olam Koydem HaTzimtzum, that's the union of Atzilus the Klolus. In other words, it's already the beginning of a certain appearance of the spheres, but they're still in a even Kloli v'Mudolim me specific Gilui, how they are El Hamakabel, what that's after the Tzimtzum. So we call that Atzilus de Klolum. Hu Shem Havaya. That in the Indian of Ispashtus area, what that's Indian of Atzilus de Klolus, that's where we find this Indian of Shem Havaya. What Havaya is indicatory of Atzilus, Chochmah Bina, then Zoh and Malchus, but that's close of the Shem Havaya. There's an Indian how those madrigas of Chochmah, Moichin, Chochmah Bina, and Zoh of Malchus are all of them Levadecha. They're still in Azar, even that they're Mugdolim Boyis Borach, only him on his own. But there are Klolos Ershelet now, Tzimtzum, Shem Havaya. We could say that even though the immediate Gilui of Shem Havaya, or the immediate appearance, let's put it that way, of the Shem Havaya, albeit how it's still a Vadecha, is in the Ispashtus area. But the whole Indian of Oyer, how it is, Kedem HaTzimtzum, I feel in the Etzem of the Oyer, can all be described as coming under the general Hagdorah of Shem Havaya. So therefore he says that even the Indian of Shem in the Etzem Oyer can also describe or have an Indian of Shem Havaya. Ja, op begin is Etzem Oyer, Ispashtus Oyer, as op begin is Yud K and Vav K. What the fees we can divide the two klolos Ifane HaMshocha Me'itoi Me'a'etzem in the Indian Etzem Ispashtus in two beginners klolius in the Shem Havaya. In other words, that the Etzem will be the Nistoris LaHavaya LaKenu, what that's in van Yud K, Kiyadua, Model Maila Megillah, I feel in the so-called ordinary Shem Havaya, how he is in Atzilus, and Shaykh to the Holy Name of the Isavas. It's well known that the Moichin Amudolim BM is from the Gilui per se. We could say that Etzem here is that which is Mudali Atzmui Kaviyochel, or that's Yud K, just like the Moichin Lamata, ABM is B'toicha Odom, and that's his own awareness of himself rather than his Shaykhas El Azula. Ve'etzem Oyer Shalamayla Mibchinas Shaykhas El Oelames, who B'chinas Yud K. Ve'Ispashtus Oyer B'chinas Vav K. U'B'Klalos B'chinas Shmoi HaKol B'Atzmusay. But it's in from Shmoi, it's already a Gilui, it's already leading Be'ezeshu Terach toward something, but it's still B'toicha Atzmus. By Mashin is Bulli or Perikov Dalet. Kol ze hu ba'oyer k'moshe hu b'chinas hamshocha mino ha'atzmus. Exelo yeh afilu etzem ha'oyer. That's a inyan from hamshocha. It's a oyer which is binimshach mi ha'atzmus. Therefore, we must say that it's got eizeshu tachlis, but sof kosof bring it under the general classification of things which were nimshach b'shvil brio. Sof kosof they were all nimshach, but kavana zu and all add and are all moisif eizeshu kavana in the klolos inyan of ad shaloi nivra ha'olam. And therefore the expression is ad shaloi nivra ha'olam. What that tends to imply that you're looking forward to the inyan of the olam. You're some way considering that some way the inyan from olam is oila be'eizeshu sfora or be'eizeshu kavana. Ad shaloi nivra, until that actually occurred, then we had, as it were, in yonim which are preparing the way and which are moisif, they're ma'uirer, or those in yonim which are going to later be in yonim b'neged to the bria. And therefore, take it, the Rebbe is going to say that those are the two in yonim, Yud K and Vav K of Seivev and Mamale. So even the inyan from Etzem, well, that's going to be the market from Seivev. Seivev has a certain shaykhus to the world, on the contrary. It's the Ika Isavas is really from the Seivev, and it's present, and it has, also, a influence and what you might call a guiding force in the whole inyan of the Bria. So that means that even the Etzem Kedem HaTzimtzum is Eizeshu Hamshocha V'Gilui Mimenu. So something which is Hamshocha V'Gilui, then that was Kodmoy Aheder. It was something that once upon a time wasn't that way, and now it's become that way. And it's not mamish the immediate Indian for Kol B'Tech Atzmus, because Atzmus is L'mayla Mikol Indian. He's Kodem and immediate Indian Akadma. So there was the Rebbe, that's the Indian of the two Yud-Kei and Vav-Kei. They are in the Oyer, which was already Nimshach Atzmus. Yesh b'zeh b'chinas etzem Oyer, she'ena b'chinas Gilu is Pashtus Adayin, aber it's Nimshach, ובכינס is Pashtus Oyer, שזה עניין, יש Oyer in Seif Mamale Mekeima Echolo. So here the Rebbe is Matzayin, that the Indian of Yud-Kei, which is an historic Lavail, later, but that's the Indian of the Oyer Lamaila, Mi is Pashtus. Well, that was Lamaila also from being what we call Mamale Mekeima Echolo. Because if you say Mamale Mekeima Echolol, it's like we just said, Ad Shaloi Nivra Ha'olam, you're giving Eizeshu value and Sinus Mokim Le'inyonim Eilu. Abarega, what you say, that there was a Cholol which was Mishmali Alidei Oyer Zeh, it means it's got some kilu and some shaykhs Alinian Acholol. Otherwise it's not shaykhs to say Mamale Mekeima Mokim Acholol. Therefore, the fact that we say that there was a Oyer which filled up the whole Indian, which became Cholo, and Mamela Machias Oilam as Alidei Zeh, then we have to say that that's only his Pashtus Oyer. That's a Oyer which it's already Bugolui, that Yeshkan is a Kavana, to make a Cholo and to draw all what you might call the necessary derivatives from that Indian. Therefore, so the Rebbe, those two inyanim of a which is Lamaila from his pastors, and a which is mispashe people, even the Mamali Mekeim Hecholo, those are the two madrigas of Mamali Kolom and Meseviv Kalalmin B'Shel Shem Harishan Ba'erin Seif Shelifnei Hachimto. The Mamali Kolalmin Ubchinis is pastus Oyer, because the Bezehu Aliyas Horotzen Sha'ola Beretzeni Lahatzil Livroi, later inside that is Pashtus Oyer, there's already the Gilu of the Aliyas Harotzen, but that's a mocker to the Indian of the Ashara B'Koyach as well, and the Ashara B'Koyach has already all the details, as it were, albeit in an even from Abdullah from any Kedar of Metzias Klau, but you're already talking about, and there's already a consideration, as it were, of Kol HaProtim She'achrei Zeh Yizgalu. Aber mehr die Linie von Aliyas Harotzen, Lahat Silu Livroi, already implies that Rotzen is already a klal el prat, or it's a dover which is already considering the bria and the Linie von Atzilus Asfira. Obbeginnes etzem, who koydem Aliyas Harotzen. Harei ze beginnes sheresh, beginnes Seivev Kolalmi. So like we saw, it's Lamaila Mi Aliyas Harotzen, but Vipalas a Yud-Kei, it does have some distant shaykhs to them. That's the union of Seivev. We see that on the one hand, Seivev is Muvdal, Betachlis. L'idok Gisa, we call it Seivev Kol Almin, that it does have, like we pointed out a few minutes ago, it has a definite shaykhs and even a gather of Shmira and a fechter, v'chuli, and sof it's the Iker Koyacha HaMahaved, when it comes to the Hisavas of the Elamus and Nifrodim, then the Koyach HaSeivi, he's the Emes Koyach HaAtzmi, which actually brings that about. So sof the Indian from Seivev Kol Almin is a Emes Musik. He's Seivev, but he's shy to the Almin. Just that he's shaykh, even from how do you call it, a poil nit in an even from koyach a poil how do you call it, banifal, but he's even from havdalah mikoyach a poil banifal. So he is really the emes koyach a poil banifal. He's the shaykhs to the ganze Indian, but he does it for even Shalamaila מבחינת שייכס גלויה. That's the tight say of Kalam. Aber man kommt aus that these two madrigas are all in the actually Nivra Oilom, how it's already Be'ezishu Hamshocha V'Yurida to the Infinite, despite the fact that one of them is Etzem Oil. Goes over P'chinas Hamshocha V'Gilui Mina Min Ha'atzm. It's already a Gilui Min Ha'atzm. It's Kolol B'Atzmusay, for certain purposes, but it's already been Mizgala Min Ha'atzm. Omnam ha'ir ha'kolu bi'atzmusei mamash. Oh, but there's another Indian. Hamavu became a Drusha Chassidus, particularly from the Rebbe Nishmos Eden. We said there's a ha'kolu bi'atzmusei mamish. In other words, it's not b'amshocha mimeno, and it's not a gilui mino atzmus, but it's kolu b'toichoi eikshu muvdo b'toich atzmusei. Yehu she'enim b'chinas hamshocha min ha'atzmus klal. Rak kolu bi'atzmusei. I say, how can you differentiate it between it and the atzmus? Why do you call it Hashem? If it's mamish kolu boi, then he's l'mayla mikol Hashem is. The word of Pshat that you say it's Afal Pikein. Eizeshu inyan of Shem. So the Rebbe says, this is a famous doctrine. Brought down in Kamam Mekimis and Samabov and other places. This is the inyan of Yechoilas. So that's the musig of Yechoilas. Therefore, the Rabbeim Marich in the Hezbollah, the Goydel HaFloa of the concept in Nefesh HaAdam of Yechoilas. What Yechoilas is what you can do mitzad your ability, what you could really do. In other words, that's mitzad your etzem, and aim is the agbolas. All the agbolas are just in when it's trying to come out into action, and then all sorts of side inyonim mix in over mitzad the ability of the mensch, mitzad etzem ability shaloi. If you remove all the manias ikuvim, then he has tremendously high powers that he himself doesn't even know about, or he hasn't seen them in action. Well, that's the union of Yechoilas. And that's the union of Yechoilas is a sort name or of a power in the mensch, but it's mitzad his etzem. But it's not mamish the etzem, it's what the etzem can do. So therefore it's like a yerida legabe the etzem, it's mitzad the etzem. So therefore said the Rebbe, that's the concept of Yechoilas. So he says, Masha b'Yechoilta yizborach lahoir. In other words, it's not a oir, it's just that he could, if he would want, he could be mayor, he could give off oil. So that means that you've already gone down a little bit, mamish from the Havdalah Mitias of Atzmusei. If you say he could do that, then to a certain extent you're causing a certain what you might call a name within the Atzmus. You're somehow describing an ability that he's going to maybe at some point produce. But you're not talking about a Begolo, you're talking about how it is mitzad his etzem, that he could do that. That's one of the famous beer and the famous pilpul in this whole Indian in the Maimonim of Samapor, Vayelech Havayas Ayom, and afterwards the Maimon of Pasha B'Shalach. What else Vayelech Havayas Ayom? The other Maimonim which come Behemshech there, but there the Rebbe is masbir the whole shita of those who say that certain Kabbalim that they say that Shmoi is connected with Indian from Rotzen, Shmoi HaGodel and Shmoi HaAtzmi is Rotzeini is Barach, and then there's other shittas Penegeh to the Indian of Rotzeinoi and the Ora Animshuk Mimeno V'chulu. But over there the Rebbe reaches, he brings down the Avodas HaKodesh. But the Avodas HaKodesh says, and the Rebbe's Mavayar over there, Barichas, there's a Indian of Shmoi, the embassy Indian of Shmoi is Kadmoin Kikadmusai. There's a Gedder in his name, Kaviocho, which is Kadmoin Kikadmusai. So, Berega, what you say that's Ratzoina, then they get into trouble, because when you say a thing is Barotten, then you mean that there wasn't a will for that. Now there is. The whole Indian Barotten is that I'm Megala a certain inyan. Well, that means that there was a moment or a state or a level where that wasn't necessarily the case. Now it is. That's the whole idea of Ratzon. Ratzon is not a thing which is by definition there from way back. It's something that you want, means that you all of a sudden you produce. Except for the famous concept in which is also brought here in the Semshech and Pesam Rov and Pesam Hey. There's the Shmoy Hamuchlat Mitzad Ha'atzmus Mamish, or how do you call it, the Ratzon Hamuchlat Mitzad Ha'atzmus. Well, that's not a normal Indian from Ratzon, Kemavur Sham. Well, that's a Dover Mitzad Ha'atzmus Mamish. And the Ratzonos have a certain shaykhs, but they're Havdalah to that Indian. When you say Ratzon, so there the Rebbe is Mechayev over there that the Shittas Avedus HaKodesh is, when he says that there's a Indian from Shmoy Kekadmusai, that he means not Ratzon and not any of the Giluim in many use Bara. No, he means this Indian from Yechoilas. He means that being as it is a term referring to what could be. Yeah, so that means that mitzad the shleimus ha'atzmas, that could be. Yeah, of a berega, what you say that particular Indian could be mitzad the shleimus ha'atzmas, then you've gone down a certain step from the absolute avdolah of the atzmas, even though you're still talking about the atzmas. So that's what we call the Indian from Shmoy. And that's called, however, actually nivroim hoyu Shmoy. Therefore, what's going on? The Shlach Kodesh brings it at the beginning of his word that the word "hu" is "hu ushmoi," the "hu ushmoi aleph," or somewhere that as you say "hu ushmoi echad." That the word "hu" is "hu ushmoi echad." So hoya "hu ushmoi bilvad" is even higher than "hu ushmoi echad." "Hu ushmoi bilvad" attached to the Rebbe in the Vedas HaKodesh is mentioned over there in that Hemshech. That's even higher. That's mamish Indian from Yechoilas. Bamela, he says that that's Kadman Kekadmusai. Bamela, with that the Rebbe is miyashiv the shit of certain Kabbalim, including the Vedas HaKodesh, but they tend to say that Hu Shmei Bilvad means that there's a madrega in Shmei which is mamish equal kaviochol to the atzmas. So he said, how can that be? Well, that's the whole piyah what he comes up with over the Rebbe Din from Yechoilas, and then we say that Shmoy is kadman kekadmusay. Hainu b'chinas Hashem akolu biatzmusay b'chinas Yechoilas levad. It's all in the madrega of Yechoilas. In other words, the capacity and the ability to produce any given Indian without it having been produced klal. We're talking purely mitzad the shleimus of the etzem carrying the ability to produce that Indian. Amamele at that level, who ushmoy levad means in the most ultimate taich that shmoy kadman kekadmus. Hainu b'chinas Hashem akolu biatzmusay b'yechoilas levad. When it comes to you saying that oil that we described before, which is Baham Shochav Gilui, you can't say that that's Kadman, Chas V'Sholem. Sharehu Gilui Ritzoini. It's a Gilui, what the Eivisha decided and he wanted that he should give forth that Gilui. But how Gilui Ritzoini, Hare Ki'ilu Kodmaya Aheder. But what you say, that that's a willing thing that he wants to produce. Yeah, then that means that he didn't want to produce it Bisman Masuyam, and now he does. That indicates that there was a time when that Indian wasn't Begolui, and therefore you say that it's an Indian which came, which had the Indian from Rotzah. It's a adequate Gilui, which the Rotzah was Machadish, that Indian should now be. And so therefore, Berega, what you say that the thing is Mitzad Gilui Ritzoini, that the Rotzah wanted to produce over there, then you mean there was a point when the Ratzon didn't necessarily, or that Ratzon wasn't there, B'klal. And therefore we say that a thing which is a Gilui mitzad, the Hechreach of Ratzon, means by definition that Kodmea Aheder, there was a point where there wasn't such a Indian. But we're talking in what you might call in inverted commas the normal understanding of the word rotzen. As we pointed out, there's another inyan in rotzen, which is beklal not in this definition. It's the rotzen amuklub mitzad ha'etzem, but that's not a inyan of rotzen. But it's called rotzen. Those state in Tzamavov that it's called rotzen mitzad shem amusha kilo. It's not really a inyan from rotzen. Wherever you've got rotzen, then it means that you could have and you did have a point where you didn't have a inyan for rotzen. Racha oyer kamoshu b'chinas yechoilas levod b'zeh b'hechreach loyma shezehu kadmoin kikadmus yizbara. It's a man dikadera. In other words, if mitzad the inyan of yechoilas with that shmoi mamish hakol ubiatzmusay, then that is primordial. Pick to say with the Eibush himself is primordial. Like I said, in those drushim over there, the drushim over here, Sayam, and the one that follows it, Chodesh Hazeh, Yelchem Reish Chadoshim, that's Pasha Boiv, and the drushim. Wait a minute, Chodesh Hazeh, and afterwards Vayel Chavai Sayam. I'm sorry. Those are the drushim where the Rebbe begins this whole pilpul, and then later in Pasha Vayakel and other, he reaches these conclusions that the inyan from Yechoilas gives us the ability to teach Hashem, which is Kadman Kikadmus Yisparach. But if he says he's Miyashav the Shitta of the Avedis HaKodesh. Achamish Kasa Beirach in that Rush Umavur B'Mokim Acher the Gozei Yitztadeik Masha Kosev HaGinas Egois. Now the Ginas Egois was a great Makubal. The Rabbi Yosef Gitalki is Rabbi Yosef. He was a very great, relatively early. He was before the Shloach Kodesh, but the Shloach Kodesh brings him down. And he was shot to the Yidden, that was shot to what you call Sfadim. I don't know how much it was really shot to be Mechalik in those days. He wrote this famous work called the Ginas Egois. Yeah, I use this from the Lashon of the Pasuk, El Ginas Egois Yoradati in Shir HaShirim. And it's a sefer, but this thick. It's a Moyandik sefer on all the Shittos Kabbalah and all the Inyonei Kabbalah, from the highest point all the way down to say the Shtalz, Gura Peladika Sefer, and if I'm not mistaken, the famous Sefer Shari Oiro, which is a similar type of Sefer but more like in detail about certain Inyonim, is also from him, also from the Rabbeinu Yosef Gitalki. Al Chaponim, the Rebbe says, now we'll be on this basis, we can be Mavaya, and we can be Matzdik, whatever the Ginas Egois says, Huwa b'shlo b'tchilosei, but the shlo also brings him down. B'tchilosei, the Shem Havaya, k'moishu hu bi'atzmus, einu b'pchinas oisiyas. So this is a very famous quote from the Ginas Egois. He's one of the ones that, even though it's very hard to talk about Chidushim in these Inyanim, but he was Megala and Madgish. This is put down in many drushim. He says that there's a level of the Shem Havaya which doesn't, it's not Yud Kei Vav Kei. We call it a Shem Havaya, but it doesn't have oisias. So how can our people say in a second? Yeah, the Shem Havaya k'moshu bi'atzmus eino b'chinas oisia. The davka ha'oyer k'moshu b'chinas amshocha yesh boi oisias. Shehu inyan agilui v'oiven agilui b'dala de oisias. What that's tzimtzum v'spashta. In other words, Berega, what you say, that you've got a gilu of amshocha mimeno, then you have to have oisias. There must be oisias, k'mavur b'samavov, that all giluim come through oisias. All inyonim which bring the oil into Eishu is galas. I feel these galas, how it is in this level, are all through oisias. And that's even for oisias arashimu. The oisias arashimu inyonim is what they are poil, the whole Indian of his galas. I feel these galas are shayna b'derach etzem ha'oyer. All of it comes through oisias. So berega, what you have gilui, and you talk about amshocha min Havdalas Eitzim, you got Oisi. So it could be that those Oisis are not called Kach, but Gosha in all the Tu'ula of Oisis that we talk about. Oh, but there is Oisi, yeah? And there are Inyonim. What that means, that there must be Madregas, Koidem HaTzimtzum, which Inyonim is Yud Kei Vav Kei, in the way that we understand that Pederek Poshet. Yeah, Chochma, Bina, Midas, and Malchus. And that's immediately what he writes in the bracket, because he knows that that's jumped into your mind. I am Masha Kosa, B'divar Masra, V'tzisha Chag Shavuis, Reish Nun Vav, Eish Shashai Kol Zeh, Gamba Er and Sef Lefnatim. Even in the earth Lefnatim, there's a Yud and a K and a Vav and a K. What he brings over there, the famous view, how all these Madregas are in the Er and Sef, Mamish, Afil in the Etzem Oer, the Inu van Yud, and the Inu van K, V'chule. Abamena, that's a Me'ondike view, and that's got to do with the famous Maimah of the Rebbe. I think it was in Memhei, but the Rebbe brought in the Bossi Lagani Maimah that particular year, the whole Indian that there are even Tzimtzumim prior to the Tzimtzum Arisha. But they're in a different sort of Oifan, and he was Madgish that in, and it was mashma, the Rebbe was mamish being machadish inyonim and suyonim. But the beginning and the remes to those inyonim is in these Emshech. And particularly in that Emshech, what he brings there, well, then the Rebbe goes into the whole beer. And it's well known that the Shvuas Emshechim from the Rebbe, I'll just take off there. If you notice, you're looking all the years, but there's a Shvuas Emshech from the Rebbe, that's fleet to make. If you look carefully, you'll see this goes into very, very high, and this whole iron base began with Shvuas, as well known. This is a kilo, it's all the Emshech and Shvuas side bases. That's all the same. Over there, the Oisach HaYinyan, that he's Mavaya, the Abba Oisis, the Shem Mavaya, how they are Koidem HaTzimtzum. Like we were just Maramish, Yud K, Vav K, and he's Mad Behezbe, Oruch, how they all look and how they function and interrelate one to the other, because it's mukrak from the Gina Sa'eder. If he says that the Inif and Oisis is only Shaykh in the Ur, which is clean some Shocham and Giloi, then how does it function? So he said, look up over there and you'll see. Aval, he said, Bishmoi ha'atzmi, shuhu ha'era kol bi'atzmusei mamish, she'en b'chidam shocha klal. Now that's the Inyan, as we said before, the Inyan from Yechoilas, ein shom oisiyas, hu avaya, beloi dalides is avaya. Vezeo b'chinas helem ha'atzmi da'ein sei, shelamayla legamri m'chidam shocha v'giloy. Ma'idonyim, ma'chim acher. So we'll just finish off and then maybe we'll have a few words to say about this. Well, if he's a Yeshlema, the Gamba in Seychel, if Neatzimtum, a Shaya Pekinas Mem Stuma, like we were talking earlier, and this us, the two Inyonim in the Afasa main, the Inyan from Mem Stuma and the Inyan of the Samach. We saw that the Mem Stuma has got some sort of Shaychas because it's square, even though it's a Makif, and it's moved out, but it's got a certain squareness about it. But Ilo the Samach indicates a much higher level because it's makif bo even shover mikorat studying. So therefore he said that Bechinas Mem Stuma, Daina Bechinas Eirin Seif, Hashayach Elo Ilamas, even out is Koidem HaTzimtzum. In other words, he's Pashtus O'er. Va'iku Bechinas is Pashtus O'er. That's the Indian of the Mem Stuma. Or B'derech Klal, Bechinas O'er, Bechinas HaMshocha Mi'at. Samach hu b'chinas helem ha'atzmi, shemuvdu be'erak legamri me'o'ilam es v'ishta'u shelez. So the remez is that even though the Mem Stuma is beika in these pashtas ha'oyer, but from the Hemshech it's mashma that it's also koil de etzem ha'oyer. Mashenk in the Inyan from Samach, that's maramas of the helem ha'atzmi, the choilas, or this Inyan of the Shem, how he's l'mayla mi'oisius, afal pi, what we call in the meaning from Shem Havai. So it's well known, the famous Shalom, that occurs, the Rebbe brings over there in that Hemshech, a Reish Nun Vav, that how can you call it Havaya if you say it doesn't have any Oisis? Was it the Inyan from Havaya if it doesn't have any Oisis? So the Gina Se'ega is, he says of them, zwei Inyanim, zwei, what you might call the hairs, which later become Niktov in this famous Hemshech of Reish Nun Vav, and they occur Ezu Mekayman here and there afterwards in the Drushim. And here's another example that occurs Choponim B'Kitzur Lefiyera. And that is that the union of Havaya can be taken as a mitius hiyoisiyas bara, the etzim, what you call mechuyav hamatzias of the atzm. In other words, how he's hoya v'viyeh mitzad mitius atzmas. Dahainu, that he was always there. He was ein lo tchila, b'mela ein lo sefer. Ein lo tchila is the emes description, and ein lo sefer is meant to be Adover Tofel Lagabi Indian there. The meat is Mechuyavut Shel Matzius Isbara. That's called Hiyoisoi Hamiti, the emes Verhanenkeit, the emes of being of the emes. And so that's called Havaya, because the word Havaya Sokosof is to be. Yeah, it's the word to be, and the etzem be. Another Indian in that is the davke from that madrege, davke from a mitis hiyoisa is barach, davke from dort kommt the power to be, megale, the union of yesh mi'ayin. Davke from dort kommt the mitis koyach ha'ishavet. And that was called havaya, that he's the one who's mahave. So davke from dort, but that's how it is. Mitzad the shleimus ha'atzmus l'mayla mi'oisias. In other words, now, these inyonim have their rimmers in the Rambam and in the Alter Rebbe. And this is a very fascinating case, even though a lawyer easy to cause of being foolish, but you can say it. That here's where we see in many cases the famous similarity between the Lashonos of the Rambam and the Lashonos of the Alter Rebbe. That's one on the famous case what the Rebbe makes between the Alter Rebbe and the Rebbe, the Melech Mashiach. In many of the Sikhs and in many of the Siyumim on the Rambam, the Rebbe finds a great similarity between the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam. That's one on the tremendous harotza that the Alter Rebbe had for the Rambam, v'chuli. So what do we see? In the Rambam says two inyonim. He says, first of all, he says that there's a thing what he calls imitus himotza'oi. And he begins with Yisaydas ve'omada Chochmas. In other words, that's Rosh HaTevas Havaya. So, why is it only for Rosh HaTevas? Why is it only Kilo Beremes? Because he's talking about the Indian of a mitis hiyoisa yizbara. And remember, mitzad a mitis hiyoisa, the Shem Havaya is only Beremes. It's an ishpoisi is mamish. He told me mitzad, that's Kilo Shmoy Ha'amiti, mitzad amitis ha'atzmas. And then he says, "Mi amitis himatzoi nimtzo kolanim nimtzoim." In other words, mitzad hiyoisa amit, or mitzad amiti is hiyoisa is barach. Only he can produce the havaya. Only he can make the havaya amitis. But it's a din yesh mi'ayin. And in the Alter Rebbe, it's even more. In the Alter Rebbe makes it even more mavua. The Alter Rebbe out there in Siman Kof, he says that who, levade she'ein lo ilu v'siba hakodem lo yizbora. In other words, that he's the amitis hiyoisei hu, mechuyev ha'matzias, lo kodem lo yishum ilu v'chas v'sholem. Schreibt er dort. Hu levade b'choichoi v'yecholtoi lahaves es hayesh v'ayin me'ayin v'efes hamuchlach. In other words, the davki in that imitis hiyoisoi. Hu levade sheloi kodma lo ilu v'lo siba chas v'sholem. Amiti is himotzoi, and that's the emes of Havaya. Hamiti is a davke from them kum te koya of lahavis, and there he's even more. The Alter Rebbe says koya v'yecholtoi. In other words, we're talking about the inif and yecholah. So Amiti is, but that shmoya ha'atzmi, and it's lamayla mish oisid. Those are mitzad atzmuz. Aber avol piken is called yecholah. Remember, the Alter Rebbe is meramis in the protein and even more. But those were stated in Rambam. But the Rambam says that there's the emes hiyoisa is porach yudke okay. Und davke von dort kommt mi amitis imot lo nimtzau ele mi amitis imot. It all just happened. Gave a Keiner weiß nicht, wie das kann sein. Nimmt auch, mit dem Mord. Pilipla. Der Melis Mamis, aber der alte Rebbe, Moisi Protim, a viel Gabi wie das steht in Rambam. Over there in Reishon Abad, the Rebbe in the Sofa Biur, he brings that and he says that's the Indian of the Gina Segers. That's what the Gina Seger. And if I'm not mistaken, the Gina Seger is in his Sefer Alain. He writes that how can he ever have beli oises? He says who amitis he oise v'have ose ho amitis mechuyuv mitziusa yizbar. And if I'm not mistaken, he himself says that Davka Mishon the amitis koyach ha'havaya to bring about and to make. If I'm nimtza that you got this amazing yichud between the two concepts of havaya. Havaya hiyoisoi and havaya emachta hiyoisoi. He can make a hiyois. And that's the inner v'yesh me. Yeah, does not tell Rebbe only he what he is amitis hiyoisoi. Only he can do that. Pilipra. Oh, that's what the Rebbe says. So that's the Sofa Biur, but again, Linyaneno, that's the Mem Stuma with the Sama. Kitcha, Acharin in who the Bechachmas Timor, we saw that two Madrigas, Yesh Madriga Prinus Sosum, Rak Mina Makabrin. We saw that that's our which it's a Meshayta Makabrin, just that it's higher than their ability to be Masik. Okay, Lefiomi Miskala, it can't be Miskala. Yeah, but certain iterotzen of Bismanim that they will be there'll be an aliyah in Keilehem v'chulu. Upchinus sosum bietem, which is lamaila, we get a gilu. That's higher than the whole concept of gilu. Who in yemem v'samer. Ubatomas azoya, we saw that was igula v'ribua, the inif in a circle and the inif in a square. Igula, yeah. Shelifnei Ego Hagodel, I'm sorry. Igula is Ego Hagodel, Shelifnei Akar. Well, that's the Inif and Tihura Ilah. We said that was the oil, how it is in an Eifan from oil Haboye, oil Atzorayim, how it is in an Eifan from Mudal and Havdolah. Veripua is Tihiru Tatoa, but that's already the Inif and oil Amalbish, as we typed it, we had all big arichas. Well, that's already the oil, which albeit it's still Lamaila. But it's Malbish, it's already shaykh to what we call Makif Akorev. It's like a Malbish, but it's Lafi, as you might say, the Mida of the Malubash, but that's already the Indian of the Makif Akorev. Or Be'ema Kamelech, Shuin in Tal Oisias Havaya. We saw in the Indian, the Ema Kamelech, he bought that was the Indian of the Dalad that the Malbish is the Indian from the Dalad Oisias of Havaya. Im ken shorek lema di gula la maila mishem avaya. If we say that the Indian from Ribua is the Indian of the Dalad Oisias, then it follows that the emes of Samach, that's Indian from Igul, is la maila mishem avaya. Well, if he's there, yesh lema beis amadreges kam nefnei atzimtzum. We can say the Shmoya Godel Hu Shem Avaya, but Hakol Biatzmusay Sheprin Sam Shocher Mina Etz. It's Taka Ein van Oya Kolobats. But it's Sam Shocher Mina. Omno Shmoy Kadmon Kadmusay, what that's what we had just here. Who Hakol Biatzmusay Mamish, who Prinas Beloya, who Avaya Beloya is years. Who Prinas Ahelama Achmi, but that's the Indian of the summer. In other words, a Helam of the Yatzis Mamish. But in that Helam Gufa, two nuances like we just saw. Abamela, that's what the Emek HaMelech says at the Indian from the Shem Havaya. He means the Oasis of the Shem Havaya, how their Mamish Havaya, which is sharp to the Indian ultimately of the Yisavit. Here we're talking about the Indian from the Havaya, how it is, Koidem, Lamaila Legamri, me Stalsheles, over Sof Kosof, it's called Epis was Akilui Klapeim. And then, mitzad the atzmus mamish, the Shem Havaya in the atzmus, mitzad ha-yecholos shel ha'atzmus. V'hinenu, the hina yadua sheyesh beis b'chinas makif. We'll just learn another couple of minutes now. The yadua sheyesh beis b'chinas makifim. You got makif the Yoshor or makif the Choizer. But anybody's familiar with the famous emshach of Basi Lagani, towards the end knows over there these two inyanim also Amakaber Biur Miyuchad, when I get to the whole over there, it comes at another angle and it's aiming for other inyonim of these concepts occur over there behercha v'abiyah. In other words, v'hakel mitzad mashpia davke. In other words, there's a makif how the mashpia gives what we call ur yosha. In other words, he gives straight light, light which goes down to the makablim, on slafi erech makablim. You got a mistake over there?
Mitzad makifim.
Base between the makifim.
No. Kol mitzad makifim. Kol mitzad makifim.
Kol mitzad mashpia. You've got kol mitzad makifim. Yeah, no, it's mitzad mashpia. That's what I got here. And it makes good sense. Later we'll see Tavkas. Because there can be makifim. How be'ika we talk about mitzad makablim. Here we're talking about makifim even hamiti. These are makifim mitzad mashpia. What is the taich? If I say that a makif is mitzad makablim, then that came from the mashpia, but it means how the mashpia has been eishu or even matim himself to the makablim. You say that certain inyonim which he gives are too much for them, what you might say li'esato, or maybe even be'emshir, and therefore they remain makif after makablim. The whole concept of makif is mitzad makablim. Over makif, which is mitzad mashpia, well, that means he gives it malachatchila, but even kozeh, that it will be, even from l'mayla mihem lagamri. And in that guva tvei fanim. So it's mashma that the zweite inim, which is the makif doer choizer, which means that it's going back always towards him, well, that's going to be a makif which that's going to be hard to understand. Why does he give such a makif? It has no, it's completely and utterly sosum mia makabel altogether. It's not b'chinas kiruv of klal. And even the makif the yoshor, we're also going to see remains al chaponim be'ika inyan. It remains lamaila because it comes mitzad the maila of the mashpia, what you might call mitzad the avdola of the mashpia. The makif the choizer shemitzad makabel umashe boikeya v'oila milmata lamaila k'moshkos mokimacher. After the makabel has literally taken and he's had a certain beetle to the which he received, then through his aveda the as it were goes back, and he gives back what he received, and it goes back in a very high form of what we call oyer choizer, of its davkili achrei, what it had a certain relationship to the makabel, but then it as it were goes back to its source after having literally, as you might call it, hit him after it's come into his inyan. Then it's boikeya v'oila b'chazor. Yesh makif de'er yosho shemitzad makabel u'ma shenizbur li'u perek reish shamashpia mishaya chushi makabel eich limdoid ashpa. In other words, that's also mitzad mashpia, but he's been mishaya the chushi makabel eich limdoid ashpa. So according to Eslef is there that he's already been matzamtzim himself, the mashpia, to understand, as it were, to picture what are the chushim and the kelim of the makabel, and he's going to give him a zolchinyonim which will be able to be received by the makabel, over the fact that he has to be mushaya and he has to be matzamtzim himself to be moided those inyonim how they are to the makabel. Then that means that when he gives, he gives certain inyonim what they are going to remain makif ala makabel, even though he'll be makabel inyonim mamish lefi kelo or lefi chusho, but there'll always be a certain inyan, but eventually he'll be able to get at it if he works really hard. And that's the inyan ad arboim shnin koyim hinu shata'at the Rebbe even lamata mizeh. The truth is, it's even a little bit less than that. A sof kol sof, he gets the emissary message of the inyan, after B'lechatchila it remains makif alone. But why do we say that's mitzad Makabel? Because the tzad Mashpia gave him a dover l'mayla mimenu, but mitzad him. First of all, the Mashpia considered him. And even Choizer and the even Amitius, even mitzad the Makabel is a much higher in where it's not meant really to be miskabel etzah Makabel, but alidei the beetle of the Makabel in it, and certain inyonim. In his Avedla, he brings over there in the whole Hemshech of the Basi Lagani, even from Bittul, Mesilas Nefesh, L'mayla Mitam V'das, then he causes a certain aliyah of a bekia of the oil that he got, even though it's Lagamri L'mayla Mikoy Cha'isav, aber he causes it to be Oila B'chazor, L'shor Shoy, which means it's Chokol Safet, even though it's higher than him, but it was meant for him to deal with it. So therefore it's how the Mashpia reckoning with the Makabel. And therefore it's called the Inifan Eir Yoshev, or Eir Choyze Mitzad the Makabel. Ach, he said, Yesh Pinas Makif, the Eir Yoshev, or Eir Choyze, the Hakur Mitzad the Mashpia. And we're going to see that those are very, very high in Yonim, until it's going to ask the Shaila on the part of the intelligent reader, what kilo is the what is the benefit Lagavi the Makabel of these hashpoyas? Because they remain makif. One of them is in the Inifan Eir Choyze, it's always going back into the Mashpia. It never really gets towards the Makabel. So if it never really gets towards him, then what Beiju Mahu Ainim Bezeh? So we're going to see that ultimately speaking, Dave Shigit Dosei. But then he gives it in Azar, which is not Paterah Gilu Vamshocha al Derech Harogim, as you might call it. He gives him the whole caboodle at one go, and that's not what we said before the Maki of Choyze Mitzad Makabel. This is Mitzidim and Afu Pikeni, he gives him the whole bang. And it's going to be mashma be'emshech hadvarim that alidei the avodah for Yom Kippur and the avodah for Sukkot, and you're zeichet to that particular madrega from the Choyze had his mamish Mitzad Mashpia, which means that the inyonim of the Yom Neroim, particularly Sukkot and Shmini Atzeres, the inyonim is to come to those inyonim which are not really shy to the Makabel at all. The Mamish Mitzad Atzmusei and Afu became, right, he gives them down, which means that at certain times of the year where your whole inyan is not Mitzad your own avodah, it's all inyonim which are just leading you. But if you weren't, how do you call it, bottom, if you didn't trade on HaMelech, on Rosh Hashanah, then you wouldn't get it. I think come to ways. So therefore he said, the Bechinas Machida, Chayzer the Mashpia, Bechinas Machiv, Elia in Beyesa, Asher Bilti Mishkala Lamata, Klalu, Klal. So there you are, but you're going to get it eventually. You're going to get it. Yeah. And that's higher than all we know. It's kilo a matona, but it's a matona that you really did earn it in a very strange way, even different than what we say b'derech klal. In other words, that the whole Indian from Tishrei, that whole sort of click that occurs from Yom Kippur down through Sukkot and Shmini Atzeres groups. You can see here the groups relatives. Lo boven muvan klal. That's why Tishrei is a big bang. Another even more than normal Mesilas Nefesh. It's the Nachlas HaKlal, so I tell you. Certain big Bali Mesilas Nefesh, there's even to unbelievable inyonim. But with this inyonim, what Dave gives to everybody, Tishrei.
What about El?
El has already got everything included. As of the Rebbe, Melech Moshiach, become on Kippur. And even from Melech Besoda shows that you got even more, then you'll get it later. You got the whole thing, and that's the Taish Melech Besoda. He himself is there in the field. Atzmus Man. So he gives you as well the whole thing before you get it. So you've already got it. If I tell you that in order to get to that, you've got to have some sort of a hakdoma. You can't just do that. It just doesn't go. First of all, we make hakdoma, and then afterwards, ooh. Geen je slimmer, telkens. Then there's a famous question: what about it if you went too early and you weren't you weren't the same? Okay, one way or another. So that's what I ought to say. One way or another, got to go to Shlema. That's all this. It's just going more and more marvel in your regular way, isn't it? No, I think good lot. ממש מבחילים שבמבחילים. Anyway, let's not talk about those inyonim. We'll talk about the skate turn and middle beside Gilead. And in a way that you can get at him, you know, just how do you call it? Big day hasod. Good. Okay, guys. So be well, and we'll meet in the Soda with the Melech.